Tom Selleck. What does it take for two men to stay best friends for almost 60 years in an industry famous for chewing people up and spitting them out? No publicist arranged it. No contract required it.
And yet, here we are in 2026, watching an 81-year-old and an 82-year-old still finish each other's sentences like it's 1969 all over again. So what's the secret? Turns out, it's not really a secret at all. It's just two guys who liked each other before the world ever cared who they were. Let's rewind. Long before the mustache became a cultural icon, and long before a certain Hawaiian shirt became shorthand for cool dad energy, there were just two broke, hungry actors trying to get a foot in the door. Tom Selleck was born in Detroit in January of 1945, but his family packed up for Los Angeles while he was still a kid. That's where he grew up, chasing two very different dreams at once. He was a genuine athlete, good enough to land a basketball scholarship at USC, but acting kept tugging at him too. Before Hollywood took him seriously, he was doing deodorant commercials and modeling gigs, looking almost too handsome for his own good. And that's actually been part of his struggle his whole career. People took one look at that jawline and assumed they already knew everything about him. Tom spent years proving them wrong. Sam Elliott came along about 8 months earlier, born in Sacramento in the summer of 1944. Where Tom had that polished, college boy charm, Sam was something rougher around the edges. Quieter, harder to pin down. His family moved to Portland when he was young, and something about the stillness of the Pacific Northwest seemed to seep into him and never leave. That famous mustache hadn't shown up yet. Neither had that voice, the one so deep and unhurried it sounds like gravel wrapped in velvet. But even back then, you could tell there was something different about this guy. Now here's where fate steps in. In 1969, two nobodies with zero name recognition landed small parts in the same episode of a Western TV show called Lancer. Neither of their characters mattered much to the plot. Nobody in that room thought they were watching the start of anything historic. But something clicked between these two young actors that day. Not dramatic, not loud, just a quiet recognition of a kindred spirit. That handshake on set turned into the longest friendship either man would ever have in show business. Here's a fun detail Tom still loves telling people. During casting for that episode, the director needed to know if his actors could actually ride a horse. Kind of a big deal for a Western. Tom couldn't. Plenty of actors would have lied through their teeth to land the part. In fact, another famous actor did exactly that a few years later to get cast in a different show. But that wasn't Tom's style. He looked the director straight in the eye and admitted he'd never ridden, but promised he wasn't scared of horses and would work hard to learn. Something about that honesty landed. He got the role anyway. Meanwhile, Sam already looked like he belonged on a horse. He had the presence, the voice, that natural stillness the genre practically demands. Tom has admitted over the years, with zero bitterness, that Sam simply arrived more finished as an actor. Tom was still figuring out which way was up. Neither man had any clue that a forgettable guest spot on a Western nobody remembers would become chapter 1 of a 60-year story. The 1970s were rough on Tom, almost cruelly so looking back. He got swept up in the draft era and chose to serve in the California National Guard, eventually making sergeant before an honorable discharge in 1973. While he was off serving his 6 months of active duty, the studio quietly dropped him from his contract. He came home to Los Angeles with his military service behind him and his acting career basically back at square one. So what did he do? He kept grinding, commercial after commercial. Then a small break came along, a role in a 1970 film where, unexpectedly, the legendary Mae West took a liking to him. She was in her 70s by then, and still a force of nature. She brought him to premieres. She talked him up in interviews, comparing him to old Hollywood royalty. Tom has said that without her nudging, his career might have gone a completely different direction. Sam, meanwhile, was doing what Sam has always done, putting his head down and doing the work. A guest spot on Gunsmoke here, a small role there. No shortcuts, no complaints, just patience.
Then 1979 rolled around, and everything shifted. Tom and Sam were cast as brothers in a TV miniseries based on Louis L'Amour's novels. For the first time, they weren't just sharing a set, they were building an actual relationship on screen. And it showed. Audiences and critics both noticed there was something real happening between these two. So 3 years later, in 1982, the same team reunited them for another L'Amour adaptation, this time as brothers who'd fought on opposite sides of the Civil War and had to team up to save their family. In the opening scene, Tom's character rescues Sam's from a lynching. Two brothers, torn apart by war, just get back on their horses and move forward together. No speech is needed. Western fans still talk about those two performances today. It didn't feel like two actors playing pretend. It felt like two old friends who already knew exactly how to read each other. Now here's where things get almost unbelievable. In the early 80s, Tom actually landed the role of a certain whip-cracking archaeologist adventurer that would go on to define an entire genre of blockbuster movies. He'd been cast. The job was his, but his network held him to an existing contract for a detective show set in Hawaii, and he had to walk away from what became one of the biggest franchises in movie history. While he sat around waiting for a writer's strike to end, so his show could finally start filming, the movie he'd lost out on was shooting practically down the road. The timing genuinely could have worked out, but the paperwork wouldn't allow it. He said he made peace with it. Whether that's completely true, only Tom really knows. What's undeniable is that the detective show turned into one of the defining hits of the decade all on its own. A character full of warmth and charm, sporting a mustache that, let's be honest, probably owes something to Sam's influence, whether either man admits it. That show ran 8 years and turned Tom into one of the most recognizable faces on the planet. He picked up major awards along the way, and became the blueprint for a certain kind of confident but goofy leading man. During those same years, he also turned down another massive opportunity. A lifeguard drama that would later make someone else a global superstar. Tom passed. He went and made westerns instead, including one adventure film set in the Australian outback that he still calls some of his favorite work, and that he's mentioned wanting to return to in recent years. Sam kept building his own legacy during this stretch. A biker bar bouncer flick in the late 80s, a gunfighter role in a Wyatt Earp movie in the early 90s, and a scene-stealing turn as a laid-back narrator in a cult classic comedy toward the end of the decade. Each role added another brick to the quiet, credible authority Sam had been constructing for himself, piece by piece, without ever needing to shout about it. Through all of it, these two stayed connected. Hollywood is huge, but the world of serious Western actors is small, and Tom and Sam kept crossing paths, kept having the same conversations about the kind of stories worth telling. Fast forward to 2021. Sam took on a role that introduced him to a whole new generation, a Civil War veteran turned frontier guide in a prestige streaming series. It was the biggest, most textured role he'd taken in years, and he carried it with the kind of weight only decades of craft can produce. At the same time, Tom was deep into a long-running role as a police commissioner patriarch on a network crime drama. Totally different shows, totally different worlds, but the same core idea. Older men shaped by experience, holding up institutions they believed in. Tom couldn't help but gush about his old friend's work. He told one interviewer around late 2024 that Sam was always great, that they went way back, that he loved him and would jump at the chance to work together again. Simple words. No decoration needed. That's just how you talk about someone when the affection has had 60 years to settle in. Here's the thing about that timing, though. Tom said all this during one of the hardest stretches of his professional life. His long-running crime drama got cancelled that same November, after 14 seasons and hundreds of episodes. Tom had fought publicly for the show, pointing out its strong ratings, insisting the network would come around. It didn't. The show wrapped for good in December 2024, and for the first time in decades, Tom Selleck wasn't working. That transition hit him hard. People close to him say he struggled. 14 years of splitting his life between his ranch and a production schedule, and suddenly, that structure just vanished. He threw himself into physical labor around his property. Repairs, upkeep, 60-plus acres of hard work. Friends worried he wasn't resting so much as running from something. And then Sam picked up the phone. No press release, no public statement. Just one old friend calling another, because that's what you do after 60 years of knowing someone. Sam had lived through his own dry spells. Stretches where the phone just didn't ring. Where waiting became its own exhausting job. He's talked about how frustrating that side of the business can be. The rejection that never really stops stinging, no matter how experienced you get. He knew exactly what Tom was going through, and he wasn't about to let his friend sit with it alone. The two of them reconnected properly after that, and slowly, Tom started climbing out of the funk. By December 2025, he'd signed with a new talent agency. A clear signal that he wasn't done, just regrouping. He'd been talking for years about reviving a small-town police chief character from a string of earlier films. He'd also made no secret of wanting to work with the creator behind Sam's frontier drama, hoping to land something in the Western genre together. He told that same interviewer he missed it, that he wanted to get back on a horse. Anyone paying attention could read between the lines. Two old friends, one genre, a conversation that's clearly already started. It's worth stepping back and asking why these two matter so much to the Western as an art form. Not as icons, but as craftsmen. Both of them understood early on that Westerns were never really about horses and gunfights, even though those things fill the screen. They're about a moral code getting tested by circumstance. The hero isn't the fastest draw. He's the guy who does the right thing when the wrong thing would be so much easier. Tom's Outback adventure film captures that perfectly. A man who discovers the job he signed up for involves harming innocent people, and simply walks away from the money without a single dramatic speech. Sam's frontier guide character carries the same weight. A man with nothing left to lose who chooses decency anyway, because it's the only version of himself he recognizes. That's not a coincidence. That's two men who spent their entire adult lives thinking hard about what it means to play a good man, and who found in each other someone chewing on the exact same questions. Both built quiet, stable lives away from the spotlight. Sam married actress Catherine Ross back in 1984, and together they've kept a private life in Malibu, raising a daughter who grew up to become a musician. Tom has been married since 1987, building his own life around family and his ranch. Two guys who ended up remarkably similar, even if their paths there looked nothing alike. At 81 years old, Tom Selleck has finally said out loud, plainly, exactly what everyone watching from the outside already suspected. It's not complicated. It never needed to be. Two guys who found each other at the very beginning of everything, and just never bothered to let go. Some friendships fade in a season. This one's lasted 60 years and counting. So here's a question for you. Between these two legends, who do you think was the better Western actor? Drop your answer in the comments. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next one. Michael